and welcome to the very first episode of Better Than Wine podcast with Sean and Riley Provo. I'm Riley.
I'm Sean.
And before we begin our podcast tonight, Sean will tell us what we are drinking out of our wine glasses.
Yes, the first place to start here is a lovely Chalk Hill Rosé wine off the Sonoma coast, 2017.
It's fresh.
Very fresh. Certified fresh.
Do you know that's like 4 years?
I'm sorry?
Almost 5 years.
Well, depending on the month.
Yes.
Probably 5 years though, since it's November of 2021.
Yeah, I would say close.
Unless it was harvested
So it's not a very
December.
Not a very aged wine.
No. Like our marriage.
I suppose that's
Our
accurate.
marriage is only a little bit older than this wine we're drinking.
Yes. Well, apt that we purchased this wine in celebration of our anniversary last month.
It is.
Okay. So, what are we talking about?
Today, even though normally we'll talk about theology of the body,
Yes.
it's going to be our main topic.
We wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to who we are and how we'd like you to approach this podcast.
Right, to get a feel for who we are, whether you like us or not.
And then you can decide if you want to listen to the next one or even to the rest of this one. Maybe it's already not worth it for you.
Maybe it's too late.
Either way. So what are we doing?
So we're going to talk about the Four Temperaments.
Are we going to talk about all 4 of them?
We're going to talk about all 4 temperaments. And then we're going to talk about our own temperaments that apply to us.
Now, Sean, let me ask you, do you think after we talk about all 4 temperaments, will our likely small audience be able to determine what temperament we are during that conversation?
Yeah, I think anybody who knows us already, first of all, has probably been exposed to the 4 temperaments at some point by some
Yes.
of our friends.
Yeah.
But if not, as soon as we describe them, it'll probably be pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious. I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to talk about temperaments kind of as relating to the Christian and specifically Catholic spiritual life. We are a Theology of the Body podcast after all, and that is, let's say, pretty Catholic.
Yeah, since it was Pope who gave it to us.
Right.
You have to be, in some sense, Catholic to probably care about it.
To Pope.
Yeah. So otherwise, if you don't like popes in general, not specific ones, not naming names,
Oh my gosh.
but just popes in general.
In a later podcast, we'll share our opinions of certain popes. I'm just kidding.
You're not going to share your opinions?
What?
You're not going to share your opinions on things?
I'm going to share my opinions on things, but
Okay.
maybe I'll wait until the 4th or 5th podcast to talk about my feelings about popes.
No, we got to get it out. Right away.
No.
Right away. Set it up so that everybody knows where we stand.
Bonus content?
Patreon.com/BetterThanWinePodcast.
Okay, so do you want to introduce the 4 temperaments? Or would
Sure.
you like me to attempt to butcher the names of them?
Let's just talk about them, because I think we both can probably add little things here and there.
Yes.
Unless you want to just read descriptions that we have.
Well,
It's up
I'm
to you.
gonna open the descriptions.
That's smart.
That way, I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to make anyone feel left out.
Yeah. That's true.
So which one do you want to start with?
Just go alphabetical. So that's pretty easy. One of them is very much at the beginning of the alphabet.
Oh no, I think we should save that one. Yeah, we can start with choleric.
Yeah.
Choleric?
I think It's choleric.
I say choleric.
Yeah.
So correct us in the comments.
Yeah.
All right.
So clerics are people who are very seen, at least usually, as outgoing, kind of inquisitive, I think is the word. You want to, like, if you're a cleric, you want to kind of know about things, and you're very passionate, maybe even to the point of aggressive, but very, like, self-assured, I think.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can assure you I have no idea what you're talking about.
Good. So, but there's probably a little more to it.
There was a lot more, according to one fisheaters.com.
Yes.
Which is, well, you and I took 2 different temperament quizzes to find out which temperament we are.
Right.
And one of them was from openpsychometrics.org.
Okay. I thought you were going to stop at Open Psycho. Like, I don't remember that one.
No. And the other one was from Fish Eaters.
Okay.
Open Psychometrics did not have any particular religious take on it. And then I came across this Fish Eaters quiz when I was trying to do a little more research into the temperaments, because I wasn't super familiar with that. And they had a very strong Catholic take on it, which I found interesting. I don't know that I necessarily agree with everything that was written, but yeah, it was nice. So
maybe biased, but alright.
yes. One thing I like about Fish Eaters is that it names some saints that are associated with that temperament.
Yeah.
And I know this is a point of pride for you. We'll get there. Don't worry.
I don't know if pride's the right word. Go ahead.
Okay.
So
famous clerics include St. John the Baptist, St. Paul, and St. Ignatius of Loyola.
I mean, those are pretty good ones.
If you were living in the age of faith, perfect career choices for you would be a crusader, the knighthood, king, mayor, head of a guild, founder of a new religious order, or housewife or father with a well-organized, well-behaved brood, each of whom you expect to excel.
Okay.
So that is kind of their introduction. It's part of their little introduction.
Yeah, very leadership focused.
Yes. And we'll put a link in the comments for both of these quizzes.
Sure. Why not?
Yes. It says that the cleric is self-composed, seldom shows embarrassment, and is forward or bold. Is impetuous or impulsive, plunges into situations where forethought would have deterred him. Why are you laughing?
Because the more you read it, I'm just thinking, like, St. Paul is probably the best.
Example.
Like the ultimate example.
Maybe that's why he speaks
maybe, yeah.
to me. Is self-confident, self-reliant, tends to take success for granted. Exhibits strong initiative, tends to elation of spirit, seldom gloomy or moody, and prefers to lead. Is very sensitive and easily hurt, reacts strongly to praise or blame. Didn't like to read that one out loud.
Okay. Does this have something to do with you?
Yes, this is my temperament.
Okay. Alright. So
it's hard to talk about it without revealing that. especially when I'm choking on every word.
Especially when you are that one in particular, I think.
Yes.
Because I could have talked about mine. Even though you would maybe understand from the words, I would be able to say it without making it obvious. But
Yeah, I can't help it. Like,
I know.
there are just so many things that I'm like...
That's how it's not all encompassing, and I think it's important to note that what, whatever it provides for a description doesn't necessarily completely
Yeah, and
describe who you are.
both websites were like, this isn't a box.
Right.
You're not in a box. But one of the perspectives that this website provided for each temperament was strengths and weaknesses, and potential habits to form for spiritual growth. And I did appreciate that. I just don't necessarily want to talk about it out loud.
That's fair. Okay.
All right. So, yes.
Should we move on?
Do you want me to talk about dictators?
No, we can save that.
We'll save it. Okay.
We'll build to that.
Dramatic tension.
So the next temperament
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
is melancholic. Elemento, and so on.
And so. So tell me about melancholic.
So melancholics are very, as a cleric is outward, and melancholic is inward. I think
Yes.
very kind of in their own head, kind of a ponderer, if you will.
Right.
Someone who, just kind of thinks a lot and may not on the outside look like there's much going on. Sometimes.
Like
So,
in their heads?
Just in general. Just they could be, face to face with someone, not talking to them, and the other person might think that they're just completely zoned out. And that may be true, but the melancholic is probably thinking about like 50 different things at once.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think very usually described as creative, because again, how much is kind of going on in their minds. Sometimes tied to anxiety, I think. But yeah, again, someone who's again very, very much in their own head. And kind of, I think, part of it is like thinking about how, like, I think a lot of times they do, have that problem of like doing things as opposed to just thinking about them. Because it's like, well, they are thinking too much about like, what if I do this, then this will happen, and like how, and they're tend to be very sensitive about how they affect other people. Are not as, I don't want to say selfish, but their focus is usually more outward than inward. But anyways, what kind of description do you have?
So this one says, do you want me to start with the saints like I did last time?
Sure.
Okay. Famous melancholics include John of the Cross, John the Divine, St. Francis, and St. Catherine of Siena. If you are living in the age of faith, perfect career choices for you would be contemplative religious, theologian, artist, or writer.
Yeah, so it's again more like creative / thinkers.
Right.
is what kind of wraps up all of those.
Uh-huh.
Where they're not like the choleric probably is more someone that like asks a lot of questions, and again has like a lot of hard opinions on things and is not afraid to share those. Whereas the melancholic is more like just thinking about these things. And that's one thing I remember this the description from fisheaters.com was mentioning how probably the melancholic more than anybody has that ability of like, pondering about God himself and like in the eternal in general. Again, that's again if they have the faith to back up their temperament, that's kind of what they're led to. And I think more so than other temperaments.
Yes, it says. Sorry. Is self-conscious, easily embarrassed, timid, or bashful. Avoids talking before groups. When obliged to, he finds it difficult. Prefers to work and play alone. Good in details, careful. Is deliberate, slow in making decisions, perhaps overcautious in minor matters. Is lacking in self-confidence, initiative, compliant, and yielding.
Mm-hmm.
Tends to detachment from environment and is reserved and distant except to intimate friends.
Mm-hmm.
Is secretive, seclusive, shut in. So I feel like you described that pretty well.
Yep. I think so. At least covering the main points there.
Right. So the next one
would be
element of
phlegmatic.
Phlegmatic.
Yes. Which is, I think.
This one has the shortest description.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a whole lot going on.
Right.
With the phlegmatic, and that's I think one thing too is between all of the temperaments, there's like two that are kind of similar.
Yeah.
And then the other two are also kind of similar. But I think the biggest difference between the two like categories of temperaments is like the introvertedness of one versus the more extrovertedness of the other.
That's true.
Where you can really only be one or the other of those, and that's a big like defining characteristic.
I think I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Especially when you look at both of these websites mentioned that everyone has like a secondary temperament. And since I've already mentioned that I'm choleric, I'm choleric melancholic, and so I am an introvert, as you are well aware. But the choleric temperament is associated with strong extroversion.
Right, I guess that's my point.
Although perhaps not as strong as sanguine, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of difference. But yeah, and that's a little different than what I was saying. Is I think each one individually expresses either one of the other of introverted or extroverted. Which in your case, like being a choleric melancholic, you most purely are introverted, but have those extroverted tendencies to the point where people who don't know you that well do assume that you're extroverted.
Yeah.
So if you did happen to be someone who was purely choleric, I think there's not a way around you being an extrovert.
Right.
I guess that's more of what I'm saying. But yeah, it's a solid point you're making. That again, it kind of goes back to that it's not to place someone in a box of saying this is who you are, because there's more to it. And then having that secondary like the next one that most describes you really helps to kind of round out more about you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So this one doesn't seem to have any saints.
That's
But I
disheartening.
remember from the other page, like the introductory page,
Yeah.
that I believe it was John the 23rd was one of the phlegmatics that was mentioned.
Well, that's a good one.
And then I'll have to go look. So while you're looking, I will read this other part.
Introduction does not have any. But yeah, go on.
If you were living in the age of faith, a career choice for you would be a copier of manuscripts or a night watchman. The phlegmatic is deliberative, slow in making decisions, perhaps overcautious in minor matters. So that overlaps with the melancholic. Is indifferent to external affairs, is reserved and distant, is slow in movement, has a marked tendency to persevere, and exhibits a constancy of mood. The soul or mind of a phlegmatic person is only weakly or not at all touched by impressions. The reaction is feeble or entirely missing. Eventual impressions will fade away very soon. So this is the epitome of the go with the flow person.
Yeah. I kind of was thinking as we were reading the description, like if we were going to try to think of a saint, I feel like a hermit would probably fall into this category.
Maybe like one of the desert fathers.
Yeah, I was thinking Anthony of the desert.
I was thinking Anthony also.
Yeah,
I don't think Mary of Egypt.
I don't know. Enough
It's hard to say. We'll have to present these to the expert on the desert fathers and see if he has any thoughts.
Right. That's a good idea.
Alright, and the final one?
Final one would be
Sanguine.
Who are very, again, I think this one is more of an extroverted tendency.
Yes. I think this one is
like
the most
like they just love talking to people.
And you know what's interesting? This one doesn't have any saints listed either.
That is interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, because that's like the thing.
Later it talks about Saint Peter.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
In a bad way.
Oh, well, never mind.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but that is just like they love people, I think, and just like talk about anything, and they have a lot of ideas that I think they probably like to share with people.
Yeah.
It's like a big part of it. And that, because I think it even says in this description that they kind of, sanguine is usually sort of like tied to the idea of air, like just very like.
Yes.
I don't want to say airy, but just that whole idea that they just kind of get swept away.
Yeah. So it says, if you were living in an age of faith, perfect career choices for you would be artisan, shopkeeper, innkeep, craftsman, seamstress, tailor, brewer, baker, stonemason, weaver, potter, farmer, housewife with a very happy family.
Wow. Okay.
Definitely not a sanguine over here.
No. Or here.
That's true. Whoops. It says is self-composed. A lot of this overlaps with cleric, so I'll just read the things that don't. Is impetuous or impulsive. His decisions are often wrong. Keenly alive to environment, physical and social, likes curiosity. Tends to take success for granted. Is a follower, lacks initiative. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that last part necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of someone we know who is probably sanguine. they're definitely not, like that. Like they definitely don't lack
Initiative?
initiative. Okay, that's what I think the word. Yeah.
Is the person we know 3?
No.
Oh, that's not who you were talking about.
No, I'm talking about like a real adult person.
A real adult.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think.
Well, let me keep reading.
Yeah.
Is keenly alive to the environment, physical and social, likes curiosity. 10. Is hearty and cordial even to strangers, forms acquaintanceship easily. Tends to elation of spirit, not given to worry or anxiety, is carefree.
Mm-hmm.
Seeks wide and broad range of friendships, is not selective, not exclusive in games. Makes adjustments easily, welcomes changes, makes the best appearance possible. Is frank, talkable, social, emotions readily expressed, does not stand on ceremony. Has frequent fluctuations of mood, tends to frequent alterations. I think it's supposed to say alternations of elation and depression. So, yes.
Interesting.
I think. Any final thoughts on the sanguine?
No.
Okay. I would like to take a very brief break. So my nose is running.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go get a tissue.
You're gonna go catch it.
Alright. Great. And we're back.
We are back.
I have to fix this.
Okay, thank you. Alright, so we talked about all four temperaments,
Yes.
and you at home, or wherever you are, can take those quizzes yourself, see where you fall, see if you agree with it. Take it again, take it a third time. Just
Tell
to
us about
confirm.
it
Yep,
in the comments.
yep.
Wherever you are. Now we're going to talk about our temperaments
Mm-hmm.
so that you all can get to know us better. And previously to me revealing mine, Sean and I had not shared our temperaments with each other. It wasn't really something that we had done before. I think I did it in high school as part of a retreat.
Mm-hmm.
But like it was all on paper, so you could like fudge the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you, we had talked before. We've done personality quizzes and stuff about like Myers-Briggs. But it's really interesting to me. It's like I know my Myers-Briggs type, but it doesn't really like mean anything to my daily life.
Yeah, me neither.
Whereas I found this information very helpful.
Yeah.
And once I read, especially from the Fish Eaters website, once I read that, I started to note areas of my life that I could work to improve because I was called out by a website.
Yeah, which I think was kind of a little bit of the point.
I think it was, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I'm Cleric Melancholic, and we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And you are?
I am Melancholic, Phlegmatic.
Yes. I thought you were going to be Phlegmatic, but I think the trick of like being a Melancholic is that most of the Melancholic identifiers are going on up in your head.
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of more quiet Melancholics could be mistaken for Phlegmatics, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
So did you feel that your results were accurate?
Not at first, because the first quiz we took, it had me pretty much basically tied with Phlegmatic and Melancholic.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, I didn't really understand it, so I was like, which one
Right.
is it? But then the second one, kind of the more Catholic view, made a lot more sense and was just very like, okay, you're melancholic, and again, not to count out that there may be a secondary trait, but
Yes.
but I definitely felt overall more closely related to the melancholic.
Gotcha.
I think.
And Melancholic had all of those saints. I want to read them again.
John of the Cross,
Yes.
St. Francis, Catherine of Siena,
And John the Divine.
John the Divine. I don't know a lot about it, unfortunately.
Yeah. But also, as I read all of these,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened upon, maybe I shouldn't say it out loud.
Yeah, do it.
But one thing I've noticed as we've spent our time together
Yes.
is that I think that I'm much more inclined to the sacrament of confession than you are.
I think that's true. Yeah.
And what
I'm
it
not.
says here is confession is a great burden to the melancholic, while it is comparatively easy to the sanguine, which I am not, but
It's probably like a scale there.
well, it's gonna mention me in a second.
Oh, okay.
The melancholic wants to manifest himself, but cannot. The choleric wants to express himself easily, but does not want. Oh, can express himself easily, but does not want to.
I think that's pretty accurate for you.
Why is everything is an attack?
Well, it's not. It's just trying to make yourself better.
Room for
It's-
improvement.
It's a very theology of the body perspective of,
Right.
or maybe it's just a John Paul II perspective of not being accused for being called to more, the same way
Yes.
that Jesus.
What is it called? Not accused.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yes. I like go to confession,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel like it's a very deep experience
No,
for me.
I don't like it to be.
I know you don't.
Personally.
I think that's what it's saying here.
It actually annoys me when people make like regular confession like a deep thing. And like I get it if you haven't been in for a long time. I think it probably is very meaningful to you.
Right.
But I think we even shared this pet peeve
Yeah.
a little bit.
I think a little bit, but I do. It annoys me if you like go to confession during a daily time
regular
where the
scheduled
time is
time.
limited and there's a lot of people in line.
Yes.
And then you take like 40 minutes and then
Right.
some people don't get to go and maybe they really needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But as far as like the experience, like while you're in the box,
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for like the acknowledgement of grace. And very often, I go to confession pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I like walk in, I read off my examination of conscience, which honestly I should probably move past at some point. Like examination lists are a good starter,
Okay.
but at a certain point you have to start looking into the more detailed nuances of your sin.
Okay.
Like what got you there.
But see, that's where I don't think that doesn't need to come out in the confessional.
No, I don't think it needs to come out in the confessional. I'm saying that maybe I shouldn't walk in with my checked off examination of conscience and then just read off the page.
Yeah.
That doesn't speak to my personal sin.
That's fair.
I mean, I've categorized my sins into whatever the phrasing they've used.
Yeah. I like to do that because I get to like anxious when I'm in there that
Yeah.
I'm gonna like forget, because I always forget everything. Like I always forget parts of like the act of contrition, and then even when I'm like reading it when they like have it available, I
Yeah.
still like try to like halfway through like go back to like just my memorized version, and then I mess it up. So I like to do that.
I like to write things down, but I would like it to be more personal. But I very often end up taking a child into confession with me.
Yeah, my child's been on the other side of the screen sometimes.
Yes. As an infant, we should clarify.
Yes. Below the age of reason.
Yes. Yes. The last time I went to confession was complete and utter chaos. And I'm so glad that I have my list, because then I can just read through my list
Mm-hmm.
and be done.
Yep.
And I hate to think about it like that, but when you have a screaming 3-year-old,
That's how it is.
then you do what you gotta do.
Yep.
Yes. So back to you. No.
But yeah, no, I think it's a good point that it is probably more difficult for the melancholic to like.
It says it's a great burden to you.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those like
I know, because I ask you if you want to go all the time.
I'm like I should.
I feel like you're more willing during the penitential seasons when it's customary.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear to everyone who doesn't know us. I don't ask you to go to confession because I think you need to. Well, I guess
It's not because it's like, oh,
I know that you've
I'm
sinned.
keeping tabs on all of your
Yes.
sins.
Here's your list.
Here's your list. Yeah, no, it's not like that. Not at all. But you do encourage me to go, which is good. Because otherwise, I would just think about it for a long time and not do it.
Yeah.
But I do, yeah. I like the thing I like about going to like the more like times of the year when it's customary.
Mhm.
Like usually like Lent and Advent.
Mhm.
Is usually because outside priests will come in.
Not at our church.
Yeah, well they have a couple times, but
Not anymore.
not anymore. But yeah, typically, historically for me, that is like go time. It's like here's these priests I don't see every week.
I feel like you're the kind of person who would benefit from having one confessor.
Maybe.
You would hate it
I
initially, but
would. Probably would be better.
I think it would, because there was a time, I think right before we got married, where you stopped going to confession to the priest who fell asleep, and you started going to confession to the same priest I would go to,
Mm-hmm.
and you would go to him every time, and I feel like it did you a lot, not like it did you a lot of good, you weren't as bad of a sinner, but
The sacrament was still the same.
yes, the sacrament was the same, but the brief counsel and accountability was higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's easy to confess the same sins to a different priest, but it's hard to confess the same sins to the same priest.
Yeah, and part of what makes that more difficult is to have someone who is like your confessor.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously have to know you.
Yeah.
And you can't just like tell them and then like run away and go do all the things again.
Right.
Like you're gonna think about it.
Did you resolve not to sin again, or what?
Yeah. Exactly. So
Yeah.
it might be good, but it terrifies me a little bit.
That's holiness. I'm just kidding.
Probably.
To get there in your own time. But
Yeah.
I don't know. This analysis makes me think that that might be one of the ways in which you could, not you, but like melancholics who struggle with going to confession,
Mm-hmm.
could make confession harder to make themselves holier.
Right. Yeah, for that slight self-mortification.
Yeah, I definitely think I would benefit from a confessor, but I very often end up confessing to somebody I work with
Yeah.
literally on a daily basis.
Right.
And that's basically the same thing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, sometimes he tells me when I need to go to confession.
Yeah.
And it isn't a way of keeping tabs on myself. He doesn't put it like
I can
that.
see that.
But
yeah.
There's like a look that he'll give me when I say or do something, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I see it.
Yes. Let's see.
Right. So that was my I think my main trait is the melancholic.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely there's some phlegmatic in there.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know, just like trying to motivate myself to do things. And I think that comes into things too, like going to confession. Like a phlegmatic person probably also struggles because part of the phlegmatic tendency is pretty much struggling to like get yourself to do anything.
Yeah.
So it's a different reason behind it. But
Can I read something else off of here
yeah, please.
that you're probably not gonna like?
Yeah.
It says, a melancholic person who has no confidence in God, the love for the cross, God and the love for the cross falls into great despondency, inactivity, and even into despair. If he has confidence in God and love for the crucified, he is led to God and sanctified more quickly by suffering mishaps, calumniation. Did I say that right?
Probably.
And unfair treatment. But if these two virtues are lacking, his confidence is very dangerous and pitiable. If sufferings, although little in themselves, befall him, the melancholic person who has no confidence in God and love of Christ becomes downcast, depressed, ill-humored, and sensitive. He does not speak, or he speaks very little, is peevish and disconsolate, and keeps apart from his fellow men. Soon he loses courage to continue his work and interest even in his professional occupation. He feels that he has nothing but sorrow and grief. Finally, this disposition may culminate in actual despondency and despair.
Yeah.
There's the phlegmatic side.
Sure is.
Yeah. I just feel like I've seen you in periods of your life, not to say you lost confidence in God, but where this kind of, like, I would say a shadow of this kind of has shown me that you are melancholic.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's accurate. Because, I mean, yeah, definitely many times I can think of in my life, or even if it's short or long periods of time where that's true. It's happened. So, yeah. But I think that's the important thing. It's never a total, like, loss of faith.
Right.
There were some close calls.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think you've had any close calls since I've known you.
No. Mm-mm. It was all right before that. It was all getting ready.
Is there anything else you want to mention about your temperament?
No, melancholic, phlegmatic.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me.
Don't talk to me. Hates people.
That's my. I don't hate people. I don't say that anymore. I used to say that, but I don't anymore.
I say that. I think that's my cleric side.
Yeah.
We'll get to that though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't talk to me. What did I want to say? Oh, yes. So, for our listeners who don't know us, ask someone who does know us. I'll probably talk more than you.
Yeah, I think so.
On this.
It might end up being pretty even.
Yeah, that's true. You have a lot more.
It's one of the, like, theology of the body is one of those things I can talk about.
You can.
So.
I love that.
And I like to talk about it.
You do. Okay.
So.
I like this. One more thing.
Oh, go. Yeah.
Okay. This is so true of you. It is well to keep him always busy, but do not overburden him with work. Literally, if I'm like, let's keep going, let's do another task, you're like, done.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, so I actually do remember that being part of the description. And it's like, how to, because I think it gives like kind of instruction for like how to try to overcome sort of the bad tendencies of your, because I think that it lays out that there's kind of pros and cons to each temperament.
Right.
So like we want to not just acknowledge what we're good at, but also work on what we're not as good at. And sort of try to overcome the weaknesses of our temperament. I remember it saying that a melancholic person should try not to be idle whenever possible, because then it's like you're just sitting there thinking about things, and again it just eventually can lead to like seems like despair and anxiety and self-consciousness. So I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen that in my own life.
I think if I can bring up our dinner conversation that we were having just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about kind of adding some structure to our lives because my temperament is very impulsive and yours can get lost in the depths. Which, not necessarily a bad thing all the time, but...
It's sort of like a quiet, like...
Yeah. But I think we very often find ourselves scrolling.
Yeah.
And we talked about some ways to kind of reduce that.
Yeah, so a pro tip.
Provo pro tip? Is this a segment that we're starting?
That'll just be a thing. Maybe it happens randomly. I
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna make like a sting?
Yep. We'll sting a little graphic. Wait.
Sorry.
That's okay. So that's kind of envisioning, like, Provo pro tip. Explosion. Anyways, we'll workshop it.
It'll be like the stone letters, like doom doom, and then
yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Do that. Anyways, so adding structure.
Yes. So we talked about basically dedicating one night a week to a different activity. And kind of having that repeat on a cycle.
Right.
So, obviously one night a week we are going to record these podcasts.
Yep. One night a week we'll talk to each other.
Which... to that point, I don't even care if nobody listens to these because we get to have like long form discussion.
Yep.
And I think that's so good. And it's about good things, so.
Right. Yeah.
If we're the only two people
who
care about this conversation, I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Because it's a little bit deeper than just like, what'd you do today?
Yeah, and like I
waited for you to get home.
Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah. So then we talked about, so I'm an artist and I really want to have time to paint. So I could paint on the nights that you play video games with your friends. which Sean has a dedicated night each week where he reconnects with his high school guy friends.
Yep.
Why are you
I
laughing?
don't know. It's just funny that you like specified guy friends
Yes.
instead of my high school girlfriends.
Yeah, right. You don't have any of those.
That isn't, yeah, it didn't exist. So
Um,
anyways,
yeah, so kind of like a hobby fun
yeah.
night. And then one night a week we're going to play a board game or a game.
Yeah, which I'll just show you that.
Excuse me. I don't think so.
Okay, we'll see.
I owned you.
And I own you in the last game before that.
Yeah, so it's about even when we play games with each other.
We'll keep score.
And then what were some other things that we were going to
Reading.
do? I want to give people, yes, so we're going to read. One of the commitments that we made when we started this podcast was that we were going to start reading, this is going to sound lame to some people, but for 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
to
Not a
do-
lot.
Or was it one chapter of
I
a,
thought it was 1 hour. So I
okay.
think it makes sense to do more like time and,
Yeah,
but anyways, yeah.
well, we're going to read.
Mm-hmm.
Partially so that we're going to read stuff for the actual podcast, but we're also going to read other things.
Yeah.
That will be our hour of reading a week, which I realize a lot of people probably read like an hour a day or something.
Or not at all.
We've not really been reading since we
Yeah.
had kids.
Yeah, I've never been a reader, really.
Yeah, I stopped reading when it started being assigned.
Yeah, that killed me a little bit.
Yeah.
Any love of
The
reading
whole
it.
annotated books thing,
Yep.
like write on this page or you're gonna lose points. And I think the last book that I read all the way through before assigned reading crushed my soul,
Mm-hmm.
was probably like either the Iliad or the Odyssey for sophomore English in high school. It was our summer reading and we were required to annotate it, and I was still an overachiever at that point.
You enjoyed that?
No, I'm just saying I finished the book.
Oh, I thought you were saying like the last one that you cared about.
No. Like, well, it was, I
Okay.
cared about it because it was an assignment,
Right,
and
it wasn't just for fun.
no, it was very
What
much
about-
unfun.
What about for fun?
For fun, like the last book I finished for fun
Yeah?
was probably Wuthering Heights
Okay.
in middle school.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that sad? I used
Yeah.
to lay on the couch while my family watched TV, and I would read like an entire book in one day.
Yeah. I can only think of a couple books that like I read all the way through that like I couldn't
Yeah.
put down.
Like
Uh,
well, can you count like assigned books?
Yeah, because there are maybe like 3 or 4 books I can think of that I have as like assignments. I think they were all
Yeah.
like summer reading things, but they were assigned and then required, but I
Right.
enjoyed them.
So I did this was like senior year of high school, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Junior and senior year English kind of blurred together because I had the same teacher in the same room. I think it was King Lear. Was interesting to me
Yeah.
in the way that she was a really good teacher.
Mm.
I just hated like accelerated reading and
Mm-hmm.
annotations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now I'm reading The Four Loves by C.S. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really hard to get back into reading
Yeah.
and like comprehending the material.
Yeah. There's something like psychological about it.
Yeah.
I think now, at least for me, I noticed that like picking up a book and like opening it and like trying to read it, like even though I may want to,
Right.
my brain is like, this does not
Oh my gosh.
bring joy.
Yes.
Does not spark joy.
This does not spark joy. I just remembered so I told you a lot about the class that I took in high school called Extended Readings in Church History
Yeah.
with the best teacher.
Right.
And in that class, we read The Interior Castle. I finished that, and I loved it. Didn't fully understand it, because then we were supposed to write like our own version of The Interior Castle, and I failed the assignment. We read The Confessions of St. Augustine, The Cave, and Till We Have Faces, which you know that I love that book.
Yeah.
I love pretty much
It's
anything by C.S. Lewis, though.
Yeah, me too. I think he's overall my favorite author.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the style of writing.
Yes, hands down,
Bar
none.
There's some close ones. But...
Holy Spirit is actually my favorite.
Alright.
I know.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. Thanks. What were we talking about?
Our schedule.
Oh
that
yeah.
We're working on.
Oh yeah.
Implementing.
Little tangent.
Yeah.
There. Okay, so reading, painting, video games, like everything I think is good in moderation. And I really am glad that you play every week with your friends so that you can maintain those relationships.
Yeah, that's what it's really about.
It is.
Like, I don't know if I would ask you, like, hey, can I have a block of time so I can just sit by myself and
play video games with strangers.
Yeah, or even just by myself. I don't know. It's definitely, I don't think I would even do that if it wasn't for...
Yeah, for sure. Well, and we really made these arrangements because your friends were begging me.
Yeah, that's true. Well...
Because they miss you.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy that that arrangement could be made.
Yeah, me too.
What else did we talk? Oh, journaling.
Yeah, doing some journaling.
Reflective prayer, scripture reading. Just like building it into our week. Oh, and watching a show together. We really like to watch shows and criticize the current cinematic productions. Current? I guess not really current.
Well, I think more of what we do is just turn on something we know.
Yeah, but we usually have one new show.
Yeah.
But we want to kind of reduce the amount of TV that we're watching. But
yeah, it's become like the default.
It did for a while. I think we're improving on that a lot. Yeah, I think that's everything that we talked about. Obviously, we gotta spend a night folding laundry.
Yeah, just like general things to be done.
Yes. But the hope is really with those things to spend about an hour of the night doing that. So one episode of a show.
Right.
Probably more than an hour of painting for me.
Yeah.
And maybe more than an hour, probably 2 or 2.5 hours of video games with your friends. But those are things that we can kind of do together or not together, at the same time.
Some of them
simultaneously.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And just being intentional with your time.
Intentional. I think that's really what we're going for here.
And I think since we both kind of fall into melancholic, I think that goes back to what we were talking about of not being idle.
Yes.
Because otherwise, look what happens.
Yeah, seriously. So much wasted time.
Yeah.
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 Anything else for the list of things? We can talk about me being a cleric.
Yeah, I think we should talk about
Okay. So basically, I'm a dictator,
that. According to this one
according to fish eaters.
thing. Yeah.
Like, what even is fish eaters?
People who eat fish.
So Catholics?
I think more than just Catholics eat fish.
You know, we should have fish this week. It's Advent, so we should have fish on Fridays.
Sure.
Because it's a penitential season.
Right.
I think it would be good for us to, full disclosure, we don't do the no meat on Fridays thing currently.
Yeah. Just like, I don't know.
But I would like
I feel
to.
like a lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't, but you're supposed to do that, or another penance. If you're in the United States, it's allowed.
Yeah.
Technically, we're obliged to do a penance on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to do fish on Fridays during Advent, and then carry it over
Mm-hmm.
into ordinary time.
Yep.
Okay. Famous clerics. We talked about that. So some other famous clerics that we didn't already mention are Julius Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
Hannibal.
Yep. Who else?
Hitler.
Yep.
Stalin.
What about like the good ones?
Lenin. Mao.
What did I just say? What about the good ones? Let's focus on them.
Were there other good ones?
They're good, yes.
I'm looking.
You said that there were saints.
P. Schramm says the choleric prefers to die rather than topple himself. Okay, here's what I was talking about. I alluded to in a previous conversation that you didn't understand because you didn't know that it related to temperaments or what my temperament was.
Okay.
It says, this is categorized under dark sides of the choleric temperament, which has got to be at least 3 pages long.
Yep.
Feels deeply hurt when he is humiliated or put to shame. Yes. Even the recollection of his sins fills him with great displeasure because these sins give him a lower opinion of himself. In his disgust over his sins, he may even defy God himself. I feel like that kind of explains why I go to confession pretty regularly.
It's like almost scrupulosity.
Yeah.
Well, according to that, yeah.
I was mostly silently commentating on the almost.
Okay.
Okay. What I was referred to was deceit, disguise, and hypocrisy. This is definitely, I feel like, and maybe this is my other thing of having a low opinion of myself, but this is an area where I have struggled.
Mm-hmm.
As a noble and magnanimous as the choleric is by nature, the tendency to pride and self-will may lead him to the lowest of vices, deceit and hypocrisy. He practices deceit because he is in no way willing to concede that he succumbed to weakness and suffered a defeat. He uses hypocrisy, deception, and even outright lies if he realizes he cannot carry out his plans by force.
So,
Really? You're gonna laugh?
Well, it's just, I didn't realize you struggled with pride.
I told you that in confidence.
I know, that's okay.
Ugh.
Can make other bold claims as well, but
Just quote
like some people.
my spiritual director back to me on,
Yeah.
I almost said on public television. I mean,
Yes.
that's essentially what YouTube is.
It's true.
So, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Because you can't be wrong, or else you'll die inside.
the true... Okay, this is the very next sentence after where I left off.
Okay.
For the true communist, everything... It says that.
I believe you.
For the true communist, everything that will help his cause is right and just. He makes and breaks treaties and promises. Robbery and lies and murder are considered justified if done for the party and the cause without consideration of the cost in human suffering.
Wow. So this is someone who's like really like 100% choleric.
I would think so.
Yeah.
It also says lack of sympathy. He has 2 heads but no heart.
Wow. See, I think that's the opposite for you.
You think so?
Yeah, I think you have 2 hearts. Like an elephant or something.
What?
Whatever animal has 2 hearts. A whale.
Speaking of elephants.
Oh no.
Okay, wait. I want to remind me to come back to elephants.
We'll see.
The elephant in the room.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The very next sentence after he has 2 heads but no heart. It says wars, torture, concentration camps, the death of millions of people meant nothing to modern dictators like Lenin, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, and their like.
Yeah.
So, man, that hurts. Before we move on to the light side of choleric, I'd like to talk about Hannibal.
Okay. Please do.
So, it says, okay, these are the characteristics. A keen intellect, a strong will, strong passions, an oftentimes subconscious impulse to dominate others and make them subservient. That's where it talks about Hitler.
Right.
But I want to talk about elephants.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so you know who Hannibal is?
A little bit, yeah.
Have you met him before?
Yeah, we're friends.
Good friends. So it says, under a strong will, he is not frightened by difficulties, but in case of obstacles, shows his energy so much the more, and perseveres under great difficulties until he has reached his goal. Okay, so then it tells, under the choleric one, it had like a lot of little anecdotes, and this one says, remember, this is about having strong will.
Yeah.
Hamilcar of Carthage, in North Africa, took his son Hannibal to the altar of their god and made him swear eternal hatred for Rome, their implacable enemy. Later, Hannibal assembled a complete army and elephants and led them through Spain, over the Pyrenees, through southern France, and over the Alps into Italy, a feat never equaled before or after, and came very close to conquering and destroying Rome. First of all, I like that it ends with, and came very close.
Yeah, not quite.
But he took elephants
He did.
from
North Africa.
North Africa through Spain,
Yeah.
over what I believe the Pyrenees are in France.
That's how you would get there. Isn't that like right on the border of Italy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Into Italy.
Okay.
Elephants.
Yeah. Heck of a way to travel.
Took an army of elephants.
Right. I mean, if you got them, you know.
If you got them, flaunt them.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is pretty incredible to think about what kind of strong will you need to have to amass an army of elephants to try to attack the greatest empire that existed
Yes. Greatest as in strongest, not best.
Yeah. Well. Debatable, but yeah.
Anyway,
Cool. Are you gonna get an elephant?
I sure would like to.
Where would you keep it?
The backyard, we have a fence now.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to an elephant. I don't know if you've seen an elephant.
Well, then I'll get an elephant and what else? A wizard?
I'm sorry?
You were telling me about...
You're talking about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm trying to, and it's not going well.
Yeah, the elephants that are used that they have to take down.
What?
That's part of it.
It's
They
fine.
have to fight against an army of elephants. I believe the term is the mama kill.
The mama
I
kill,
think that's what they're called.
but they're
I
elephants.
could be wrong, but yeah.
Oh, if you're wrong, you're gonna be in
Yeah,
trouble.
they're like.
You know who's gonna hate you if you're
aggressive.
wrong?
Yeah, they do. Especially a couple people who would hate me if I'm wrong.
That's true.
But anyways,
Only one that we care about.
yeah. We'll make it up to him. We'll let him.
Let him come on.
We'll bring him
You could
on.
bring him on as a guest. Talk about fish.
Yep. Just fish. Well, that would be a special.
We should have him on, and then-
Lenten penitential
Yeah.
season.
Oh, okay. That's true. I was actually gonna say we should have him on. They could talk about fish. He could talk about fish.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you two could do an episode about Lord of the Rings
Okay.
and how it but like, you know, I bet you could think of a way that
You can kind of tie in.
tie it to theology of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can pretty much do that with anything.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So that could be fun.
Yeah.
And then me and his wife could just hang out behind the camera.
Sure. Okay.
Yes. Okay. I want to talk about good things now.
Yeah, let's talk about some good things.
Um,
And then probably let's wrap it up a little after that.
yes.
In a nice bow.
In a nice bow with our Catholic afterthoughts. No, wait.
No, it's kind of been wrapped into all of this anyway.
Okay. Basically, lots of clerics became saints.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to leave it.
Sure. It makes sense. With someone who can kind of stand up for themselves, they.
Yeah. But also, like, if you can overcome the vices associated with being a cleric, then I think that's a great display of virtue.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, like, really hard not to be a domineering jerk.
Right. Because I think if you become aware of it and can overcome it, you become more sympathetic.
Yeah. Well, it said, like, clerics would prefer to die rather than to humble themselves. So a cleric that humbles themselves literally dies to themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what Christ asks us to do.
Right. Because then it's like you can still kind of take a stand,
Yeah.
but then it's not like through yourself or for yourself.
Right.
You can let God jump in, the Holy Spirit, and be like, this is the important good thing to stand up for.
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about how we want people to use this information.
Yeah. Because I think that's ultimately, at least from our perspective, is what it comes down to is, like, you know, what is the point of caring about this other than just like, oh, that's kind of funny, like, oh, reading the description, that's me. Like, there's
Yeah.
more to be taken from this, I think. And I think even kind of relating it back, that you brought up before, that I think when you talk about personalities, probably most people think of Myers-Briggs, which it's like there's like 10 million different combinations that someone could be, and
Yeah.
none of those are perfectly accurate. It's like reading a horoscope, kind of like.
Yeah,
Maybe something about it speaks to someone, but definitely not to everyone who falls into that category. Whereas the part of what I like about the Four Temperaments, is that it's a lot more open-ended to, you know, the individual, and less trying to like box people up into a certain category of who they are. But that's, you know, with trying to, like we will do time and time again,
Right.
trying to relate whatever to theology of the body, which is very possible to do. In this case, that it's, I think, very beneficial to understand these four temperaments, and to understand how they affect the people around you. And I think most importantly, if you're married, understanding your spouse and their temperaments
Yes.
can really help you to empathize with them in different scenarios, and you know, that even if you're completely different temperaments, you can at least see where the other person's coming from,
Right.
and know how to respond to them. I think it's essential. You know, it's probably like at some point we'll probably talk about what's it called? Like love languages.
I assume that will come up at some point.
Yeah, that's kind of like imagine not caring or putting any effort at all into understanding your spouse's love language, like what speaks to them. Like, if you don't try that at all, you're going to, you know, it's not that it'll necessarily hurt them. It may, but you're not doing what could be best for them, which, as we'll talk about when we talk about theology of the body, that, you know, love and what that really means, right, is simply put, wanting what's best for the other person.
Right.
And of course that means a lot of things, but you know, the understanding of temperament is very important to that aspect of love, of you know, again, wanting what's best for the other person, because that's another thing that we understand the four kind of I'll just see. I don't remember if there's a technical term for these. Maybe you know. But like the four kind of attributes of love that we see time and time again in theology of the body, of like free, total, faithful, fruitful. And I think
Yes.
it kind of falls into there to be understanding your spouse.
I want to say my mind is going toward the word qualities of love.
Qualities. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it.
We'll get JP2's
Yeah,
terminology.
I mean, we'll definitely talk more about it at some point anyways,
Yeah.
too. But that I think it really falls into there with, you know, at least as far as to totally love the other person, again, that you're not holding back, that you're willing to kind of put in the effort to understand them better, and who they are, you know, and I think fruitful be part of it too, that you're going to have a more fruitful relationship when you understand the other person better. But more broadly, I think it applies to you know, interacting with anybody in our community, anybody around you, right? Whether you know them or maybe don't know them that well, is something that, you know, picking up on what their temperament maybe can again help with a lot of things. I mean, just think about like evangelization, to talk to somebody else about your faith without kind of being in their face. It really, excuse me, can really help to understand, you know, if you can kind of pick up on their temperament, to say, you know, how am I going to respond to this person, and how might they respond to me. It's, you know, very, very important. And again, that this is how you can more effectively reach someone, you know, as to who they are, where they're at. You know, it's just one piece. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but you know, understanding who that person is. You know, you think to like back to Adam and Eve before original sin, right? Like they could look at each other, and there was like that perfect understanding of who the other person was. That is lost on us now, but something we still want to kind of strive for. And again, I think that's part of it, is understanding, you know, who is this individual person, what do they care about, what do they not care about, you know, and, you know, how do they respond to different things. So I think that's a big part, is like kind of being able to reach out to people around you. It just kind of depends on your own, you know, temperament too, how you will go about that. But so I think being aware of your own, as well as trying to start being at least somewhat aware of the people around you. Again, that it goes kind of a little step further. That you don't want to necessarily just assume things about people.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good, but you know, to kind of get more of an idea that, you know, this is a person that you're talking to, that they do have things that they care about. You know, they are, you know, their own person. That I think you can't just approach everybody the same way. You know, something I've seen personally in myself is that, you know, teaching theology of the body to 8th graders, it was kind of my initial reaction was to just assume that I could just go about it the same way for every like group of kids that came in, and it would just be whatever.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily think that it would be good or would work to reach them, but that it didn't matter. But I see now, over time, you know, a few different groups of kids, of individual
Right.
people. They are different, that they respond differently to different things. And so trying to, you know, pick up on that, and again, part of it is just seeing people as people, like not just seeing the people around you as just, you know, someone over there, like there's just another person, right? That they're their own person, with that uniqueness to them, that I think is really important to remember at all times. That doesn't matter who they are, but whoever they are, they were created, you know, by the grace of God to be who they are, to be where they are, and when they are. And again, I think that's part of our goal, our mission, I guess, as far as reaching people, is to understand, you know, who they are. So I think the temperaments become a part of that.
Yeah, I think that was very well put. There were two things I wanted to add, but I might only remember one.
That's fair.
One of the things is that I want to encourage us,
Mm-hmm.
but also everyone who's listening, as we proceed with these podcasts that contain the teachings of theology of the body, at least as we understand them, to be aware of how some of these topics will be difficult and some of the ways that we might present them. Sean and I are both used to working in a little bit more personal ministry, specifically with teenagers and
Sometimes adults.
sometimes adults, very often impromptu conversations with adults, but this information was too good not to share. These teachings of theology of the body, the grace and the beauty that it's brought into our lives and our marriage. And so our hope is to present this to the general population. And so there are probably going to be some things that you don't like, or you don't like the way that we've said it. And I would just ask that, and that also this happens to us a lot when we're talking to each other, that we don't like the way that the other said something, and it turns out we're actually on the same page.
Yep.
If we would just communicate a little bit better. And so I would ask everyone, including ourselves, to take a moment of discernment and consideration for the information presented. And if you submit questions or comments or concerns or complaints to us via comment or email, we promise to do the same. And by we promise to do the same, I mean that Sean's going to hold me back when I want to give a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, we'll assume the best intentions.
We will. But also that, we're only two people, and so we can only, and we'll do our best to get perspectives of other people. But when we present ways of application, sometimes those might need to be adjusted to be effective in your lives.
Yeah, and let me say too that neither one of us thinks that we're experts.
Nope.
In any way.
Not even a little bit.
Just enthusiasts.
Enthusiasts who have been greatly affected, and we're working through it ourselves. I mean, I hope it's okay to share this, but I feel like in the last month our marriage has turned kind of a corner where it seems like things were kind of rough for a while. Like, they weren't bad, but they weren't necessarily
fruitful.
Yeah, thank you. I was like,
Yeah.
close, intimate, something.
Yeah.
Fruitful is the perfect word. We were just kind of floating through, going through the motions, mostly raising the kids.
It was like two people doing your own thing, united by this common goal of keeping toddlers alive.
Toddlers alive,
Yeah.
And I think that kind of is what pushed us to do this. I hope that we become experts
Maybe someday.
as we pursue this podcast, but yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this with you.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah, we don't know a lot of stuff. If you submit questions to us that we don't know the answer to, we know a lot of people who are experts.
Yeah,
And
closer to experts than us anyway.
yes. No, we know a lot of people who are experts.
They may not call themselves that. But to us, in comparison.
Yeah, I feel like you're forgetting some people. that we could reach out to.
Maybe. Okay, good. I'm just trying to keep everybody's humility up, I guess. Pride down. That's what I'm going for.
If you do this, I'll die.
I know. Good.
We will find out the right answer.
Yeah.
Is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because truth and justice must prevail.
Alright, Cleric. Calm down.
Just listen. Find your phlegmatic side and go with the flow.
I am.
So, alright. Do we want to close it up?
Sure, let's close it up.
Alright.
Yeah.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Patreon.
Nope.
Patreon.
One day.
Why do I always...
I don't know.
Just can't.
You'll get there.
Patreon. YouTube.
Twitter.
And Twitter.
Those places.
There's
and
not a
maybe
lot
more.
up there, but there will be stuff up there by the time you listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but some.
Yep. Find all those links in the description.
Yes, all of those links are in the description. And I think that's all.
Yeah.
You ready to sign off for the night? Go eat some baklava?
That is what I've been waiting for my whole life.
Your whole life.
It's like a dream I had last night.
Alright. Good night. Or good day. Good morrow.
I said good day. Alright. Cheers.